What is up, Steeler fans? Welcome back to another episode of State of the Steelers. I'm your Steel Curtain Network host, Daniel J. And, well, season's in the books. The Kansas City Chiefs lose to the Philadelphia Eagles in a blowout fashion. I know most of the guys have already spoken about it and have spoken about the game, so we're not going to go too deep about the game. But what I will say is it was a little bit of a shocker for me just because I thought it'd be more of a closer game. I'm happy with the results, to be 110% honest with you. I was going for the Eagles in that game. And so I'm glad with the results and how it ended up. It just kind of shows everybody that, the way that the Kansas City Chiefs lost in that game, with the defense of the Eagles just kind of harping in on them that, at the end of the day, defenses still have a big role in who wins a championship. And, the Steelers maybe aren't so crazy for putting a lot of their money into that direction. But what we're going to be going over today is going to be what to expect now that the offseason is here. What are some key deadline dates? When can trades start? Et cetera, et cetera. And then in the second half of the show, we're going to talk about some Steelers news. Steelers actually do end up making some roster adjustments. We'll talk about that. And the potential trade that almost possible quotation marks, whatever you want to call it, around it. The trade that almost has been debunked. We'll put it that way. When it comes to Trevor Lawrence, what that means for the Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback room and et cetera, et cetera. So without further ado, let's get into it. So let's start off now with the Super Bowl in the books. What can happen? NFL teams now can start negotiating for trades, right? So NFL teams are permitted to discuss and or agree to any trades involving players or draft picks. Now, the reason why we're not going to see a lot of this type of stuff go on right away is because if players are on existing contracts and there's other type of limitations with their contracts that are going on right now, it usually doesn't happen until March. Even if they were to come up with some sort of agreement, it cannot be finalized and processed until the start of the league year in March. So they can start the talking process. They can negotiate. There's no tampering. There's none of those things. So, like, for instance, this rumor that started with Trevor Lawrence, there's nothing wrong if the Steelers did reach out to see if he was available for a trade. February 18th is when the franchise tag window opens up. NFL teams can begin applying the franchise or transition tag fixed for one-year contract offers to players with expiring contracts. Just kind of thinking off the top of my head, are there any other player or any players that I think that might be getting a franchise tag from the Pittsburgh Steelers? And I don't know. I don't know if the Steelers are going to exercise that tag this year. Let me know in the comment section or send me a message on X. State of Steelers is my handle there. Let me know what you guys think. Who do you guys think could be getting the franchise tag? But that starts on February 18th. That's when that window opens. February 24th to March 3rd is when the scouting combine is. So some of college's football's top prospects will undergo workouts and NFL team interviews at Lucas Oil Stadium, which is still there. And I know there have been some talks and conversations of that moving around. It's still there. It's in Indianapolis. Not every player that's in college obviously gets to go to this. This is an invite only. These are the top prospects. It'll be interesting. I always watch it every year to see who comes out with the fastest and the best times and those type of things, the strongest, and see where they end up, in the where they were before the combine and where they end up when they get drafted, and see what that push is like, that movement, because you'll see some players go up and down that draft board with how they participate in the combine, which is why some players opt out of it, to be honest with you, especially if you have like a lot of good tape and you can't really improve your stock, so to speak. So let's just say you're a top 5 draft pick. Why are you going to do it? I mean, it's not like you're going to increase yourself to anything higher than that. You know what I mean? If you have a stumble, fall, tweak, or anything, that can actually just hurt you more than anything else. March 4th is the deadline for the franchise tag. It's at 4 p.m. Eastern time. NFL teams are no longer permitted to apply the franchise tag or the transition tag to eligible players. Players who've been tagged, however, do not have to sign their contract by this date. In fact, they don't have to sign the contract at all. Remember Le'Veon Bell and his situation that occurred when he ended up not playing. I think it was 2018, the entire year, and he was expected to come back almost every week. I think it was like Bell Watch that was going on. It was pretty insane. March 10th is when the free agent negotiation period begins. That starts at 12 p.m. Eastern time. This is the tampering period. I strongly suspect tampering starts way earlier than this, but this is when it starts. Agreements can be reached, but they cannot be officially signed on March 10th. That's not until March 12th. This is when the new league year starts. It starts at 4 p.m. Eastern. It officially gets underway. So any negotiated contracts, trades can be finalized and processed. Any free agent or trade discussions that begin after this point can be finalized immediately. So between March 30th and April 2nd is the annual league meeting. NFL owners will gather in Palm Beach, Florida to discuss proposed rule changes and other league matters. April 7th is the offseason program, is when the offseason programming begins. And this is for the NFL teams that hired a new head coach. The Chicago Bears, Dallas Cowboys, Jacksonville Jaguars, Las Vegas Raiders, the Patriots, Saints, and Jets are all eligible to gather for spring workouts. So they get to start, I think, a little bit earlier, like a week earlier than the other teams. Yeah, because on the 21st is when it expands to all the other NFL teams so they can begin their spring workouts as well. April 18th, restricted free agent deadline. Any players without contracts as restricted free agents must sign an offer received by their respective teams or remain free agents. April 24th through the 26th is the NFL draft. This will be in Green Bay, Wisconsin this year. Next year, in 2026, the Pittsburgh Steelers or Pittsburgh will be hosting the NFL draft. I'm excited about that. I might actually make my way out there. I know a few of the guys from Still Correct Network are going to head on out there as well. The Steelers, they may be drafting the next quarterback out there. I mean, Rooney mentioned it not too long ago that the quarterback position was going to be addressed potentially in the draft or through free agency either this year or next year. Now, given the fact that there are zero, well, I guess Skylar Thompson is the only quarterback that's on the roster for this upcoming year. I highly suspect the Steelers are going to end up probably acquiring more than one that are not going to be from the roster from last year's roster. And, you know, I think that if the Steelers end up acquiring anybody from last year's roster, it's probably going to be just maybe one of the quarterbacks. I mean, Kyle Allen is a guy that might come back on, you know, as that third QB. But to be honest with you, I mean, if you're going to bring back either Russ or Fields, you're going to want another player to come back them up, and maybe even somebody else on a rookie contract that you can develop over time. So you're probably going to draft one regardless. And I mean, we'll see how that goes this year. But if they hold it off till next year, hosting it, franchise quarterback, I mean, I hold no secrets. I'm hoping the Steelers end up drafting Archie Manning. That's just what it is. I think there's a lot of people out there that are hoping that Archie Manning goes to their team. You know, but draft is in Pittsburgh 2026. It's not a better story can't be told than that one. All righty. So May 1st is when the 5th-year option deadline is. Teams wishing to exercise the 5th-year option built into contracts must do so by this date. So if they're going to be doing the 5th-year options on some players for the 2022 first rounders, they have to do so by May 1st. May 2nd is when rookie minicamp begins. NFL teams will be able to hold 1 3-day minicamp, Friday through Sunday or Saturday through Monday, on one of the 2 weekends following the draft. So after May 2nd, May 20th through May 21st, the spring league meeting. NFL owners will gather to discuss league matters in Minneapolis area. July 15th, the franchise tag extension deadline. Teams desiring to sign tag players to long-term contracts extensions must do so by 4 p.m. Eastern, or said players will be required to play under the tag in 2025. Mid-July, training camp opens. Teams can begin their summer training camps, first for rookies, then for veterans, in preparation for the 2025 preseason and regular season. And there you go, guys. That's how we get to training camp and then to the preseason and so on and so on. It's an exciting time, man. I mean, I know we're not going to hear a lot of news right now just because, like I mentioned before, a lot of these things can't be finalized until March. You know, I'm not a guru when it comes to free agency, cap, and all these other things. But, you know, if there's like a situation where you come to an agreement with a team today about something, it can't be finalized until March. Who's to say that another team can't come in and say, all right, well, I already know what you want. I know what they're offering. Well, I can offer you something that maybe they can't offer on top of that deal to get what they were asking for. And then you end up in a situation where, you know, you end up getting the rug pulled out from underneath you. So I think that's going to be more reason why we'll see a lot of these trades happening, you know, closer to the deadline there or towards the new year in March. But yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens. At any point, some trades can be announced, just highly unlikely. But we're going to talk about some of the trades that almost happened already. We'll be right back. We're going to take a few moments for a break. Hey, check it out. You made it to the other side. Thank you for sticking with us. Before we get back into the conversation, I want to remind you guys of our website, steelcurtainnetwork.com, your one-stop shop for Pittsburgh Steelers news and coverage. Make sure you go check it out. You'll see the new layout, the new thread, so to speak, where you can see where everything is now at and positioned. It's good. It's a good-looking website. You don't want to miss it. You get up to date and up to the minute news and coverage, breaking news. A lot of stuff was popping off this, off the screen the other, for the last couple of days, whether it was going to be a trade and or some actual acquisitions that we're about to get into with the Pittsburgh Steelers. You'll find them first there at steelcurtainnetwork.com. And while you're there, go check out our other podcasts. You'll find other audio-only podcasts such as this one and other ones that are there for Steel Curtain Network. Also, check out the Steel Curtain Network YouTube site, Steel Curtain Network, where you'll see myself and Shannon White Monday nights on a show called The Hangover. You don't want to miss it. And so without further ado, let's get back into the conversation. Let's get into the moves that did happen before we get into the moves that made the most news that didn't happen. And the first one we're going to talk about is that the Steelers do release a player. They released linebacker Preston Smith. He was a guy that number 91 that was acquired in the middle of the year. This is more of like a cost-cutting, cap-saving type of move. I thought he played okay, getting on a moving train with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I just, when you have Nick Herbig, Alex Highsmith, and TJ Watt, and presumably they're going to be coming back all fairly healthy, having that extra depth at this point is probably not warranted right now. I think he's a good player. I thought he did well, and I think he's a type of player that if you're in a situation where you're in the middle of the season and options are limited and you need to pick up somebody to help you out and get you through the finish line, I think that Preston Smith was, he was able to do that. He was able to do that for the Pittsburgh Steelers as well. Liked what he was able to do. Don't foresee him actually making it back onto the roster. Highly doubt it. If he is or does, it's probably due to some injuries and things like that. So hopefully the Steelers make some different moves in the strength and conditioning department when it comes to their coaching staff. That way they can have less of these soft tissue issues, and maybe perhaps we won't see the likes of a Preston Smith and that's out there so often due to injury and things of that nature. Appreciated what he did for the Steelers when he did it and how he was able to do it. Good luck on his future ventures, and appreciate what he did for the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers also have hired a coach. This is the inside linebacker coach, Scott McCurley. He is formerly of the Dallas Cowboys, which is not my favorite football team to be picking players and coaches off of, but it is as it is. But when it comes to McCurley, he's actually a local. He's a local. He attended Mohawk High School and graduated from the University of Pittsburgh. He got his start in the NFL back in 2006 as a coaching administrative intern with the Green Bay Packers under fellow Pittsburgh area native Mike McCartney. Then in 2007 and in 2008, McCurley was a coaching administrator with the Packers before then working his way up to defensive quality control coach, a role that he was in from 2009 to 13 with the Packers. And then from 2014 to 17, he was an assistant linebackers coach for the Packers before becoming the defensive assistant in 2018. And then he was out of coaching, but came back in 2020 following McCartney to Dallas, where he served as the linebackers coach through the 2024 season. So this is like his first job away from McCartney, so to speak. The Cowboys defense has been up and down. They've had some good stuff with their middle linebackers. They've also dealt with a lot of injuries with their middle linebackers. But when they were healthy and they were on their game, they have been a pretty solid group, so to speak. Nothing to it's not eye opening. It's not eye popping. I don't think it's not gonna move the needle a little bit by changing the inside linebackers coach, in my opinion. I mean, maybe when you look at the progression of Patrick Queen and maybe Peyton Wilson, cooling down as the season progressed, you look at your inside linebackers coach and say, hey, where could we have gone better here? Where could have we have gotten more out of Patrick Queen and maybe developed our inside linebacker a little bit. I don't want to say better because I think he had a pretty strong year. I think a lot of the rookies, I apologize, kind of tapered down towards the second half of the season just because it's a long season for rookies. There is what is called the rookie wall for a reason. And I think that it doesn't matter what position or what, how long you were in college or whatever. I mean, it's something that everybody has to go through. Some people can, some players can get through it without it affecting their game as much as others. But for the most part, there seems to be an effect as the season gets narrow, so to speak, as Tomlin would say, towards the end of the year when things are getting to kind of long in the tooth, so to speak. But yeah, it's not going to move the needle. This is Mike Tomlin's defense at the end of the day. Mike Tomlin's going to run it the way he wants to run it. I would say I do think that the Steelers would probably benefit a little bit, if maybe perhaps Queen wasn't the green dot guy. I know that he struggled when he was the green dot guy when he was with the Ravens, and then when Roquan got there and he became the green dot guy, that is when Patrick Queen was playing more freely, fast, fluid, and really made a name for himself out there and got him his big payday, so to speak. So maybe perhaps Peyton Wilson can pick up that extra slack, so to speak, and be that green dot guy and allow Patrick Queen to play just a little bit more fluid. I think that'll really help out this defense and maybe perhaps get it moving in the right direction. But I don't know. I mean, it's I think there was some other moves that could have been made on the defensive side, on the coaching staff, that should have been made based on the the lack of performance there from the defense, especially down the line. It was very concerning, not being able to stop anybody. Defensive backs letting people run open, pressure not getting there. Even TJ Watt was having himself not the best year down the line. But those are the players and the coaches that have been picked up for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Those are the real things that have gone down. What didn't go down that brought up a bunch of talking conversation when it came to the trade and the quarterback position was the fact that there was a report that the Steelers were contacting the Jacksonville Jaguars for information about Trevor Lawrence and his availability. Now, I know a lot of folks have come out and said, no, this is not true. It's hogwash, whatever the case may be. I don't know. I think that usually if there's smoke, there's fire. I think that if the Steelers thought that either Fields or Wilson were their guy for next year, that they'd be working to sign him by now. Now, do I know if there would have been a contract done? I don't, but I think that there would have been some sort of like, hey, this guy, whether it's Fields or Wilson, are closing in on a deal with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Negotiations have started. Something to that effect. This seems all too familiar when it came to like with what they were saying with Mason Rudolph, how they wanted him back last year and how he was such a great player, blah, 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 blah. At the end of the day, they never offered him anything until after they signed who they wanted. And so, I just, this is deja vu all over again. If they thought that one of these guys were their guys, I think we would have heard some of those type of conversations being had. And that way, I don't think, because I know there's a lot of folks that are saying, hey, if I was Fields, if I was Russ, I would hit this. I would see what my worth is out there. Would you, though? Would you really? Because if you have a team that's willing to say, all right, we'll give you pole position right now, and we'll give you a paycheck for the next, this year and the next. You're fairly young still. This is a prove it type of thing still, because at the end of the day, Justin Fields only played 6 games last season. You still got to prove it for a little bit more. And you have the opportunity to be a starter here. Are you going to just say, no, let me see what else is out there, give you guys as an organization the opportunity to find somebody else to take that opportunity from him? And if he goes out there and has to wait until free agency and the tampering period starts and all that other stuff, even though I'm fairly well positive that tampering starts well before when it's supposed to, but let's just say that he does wait for those things to happen and the deal that he's hoping he's going to get doesn't come to fruition, or where maybe perhaps the team that he thought he was going to sign with that said, yeah, we want you now. All of a sudden they're looking in the draft at this quarterback or that quarterback, and maybe you're the quarterback for today but not for tomorrow type of thing. And then you then fell out of a situation where you were one in a place that, as he had already stated, that he wanted to be at because of wanting to be with the same coordinator for more than 1 year at a time, a place where he was potentially giving the pole position. He's already know who the coaches are. They're familiar with each other, weaknesses and strengths, maybe not to a large extent because it's a small sample size still, and it's only 1 year removed from the Chicago Bears organization that is dysfunctional as God knows what. But I digress there. So, you still in my opinion, if you thought that was your guy, you wouldn't risk him going somewhere else because, let's just say you don't want to promise him also. Let's look at the coin on the other side. Let's say you don't want to promise him 100%, you're going to be the starter. We're going to give you the pole position. We might bring in somebody else, but we can give you pole position. And let's just say the person that you want isn't available, or they don't get traded, they don't get signed, or there's somebody in the draft that gets picked up before you. Now you're out of luck. Now this person over here looking at other teams, and what if another team's promising him more than just pole position? And now you're in a situation where you're stuck with Thompson or some other backup quarterback that wasn't a worth position than last year. Now, I do think that if something like that were to happen, you'll end up finding yourself finally in a losing season where you could potentially pick up or be in striking position where you're high enough in the draft where you can move up a little bit further to get yourself one of these top quality quarterbacks in a draft next season where the quarterback grouping is supposed to be a lot better than this year. But I digress on that. So go all the way back around. Trevor Lawrence. The capital that was set out there, first rounder, a second rounder, I think that's a little rich. I wouldn't want to have that out there. If I had to take a guess and a gander of what occurred here, I think that maybe perhaps somebody in the Jacksonville organization is thinking about putting out some feelers for Trevor Lawrence, and this is one of them. Hey, this team reached out. This is what, we're looking at. Anybody want to come and talk to us about that? I think that's more or less what it was, a feeler. I think Jacksonville could be ready to move on. I mean, they're rebuilding. They have, a new GM coming in. I know that a lot of people are going to say, hey, well, if they trade him, there's a lot of dead cap there, yada, yada, yada. And this is true. But those things can be adjusted and negotiated in the trade as well. And so it's not like it's set in stone. That's the only way it's going to work. It's more than one way to get to Walmart, so to speak. But to me, I don't know how much truth there is. I think that when there's smoke, there's fire. And if the Steelers were talking about another quarterback, regardless of how close they can get to potentially acquiring that quarterback, like let's just say it's a pipe dream or it's hey Bob, how's it going? They're on the golf trail, and oh boy, ask him like, hey, so you're going through some changes. Y'all thinking about giving up your quarterback? I mean, I don't know if those conversations ever occurred with Ben Roethlisberger was a quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now I get it. I mean, Justin Fields, nor Russell Wilson or Ben Roethlisberger, and they shouldn't have the what's the word I'm looking for? Comfort of not having those type of conversations when they're in the building. But when you have a starter, I don't think you're having those conversations about other starter potential quarterbacks, if that makes sense. I wouldn't be surprised if you're asking about, hey, that backup quarterback you guys have any blah, 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 blah. Or if you think that quarterback's potential or is a backup, then maybe I guess you can ask about those type of things. But I just find it weird to ask about a starting quarterback if you have one in mind already. Well, guys, that's all I got for you guys today. Please hit that like, subscribe, 5-star, wherever you're listening to. You know what to do. Let me know what you guys think. You guys can reach me at State of Steelers on Twitter /X. You know what to do. Appreciate everybody. I hope you guys have a fantastic weekend, safe weekend. Happy Valentine's Day for everybody and all the couples that are out there. Y'all stay safe. Until next time. Peace.